Alright, so we are back at this 8.2 liter Detroit crane truck. We got this thing running about a month ago. Guy's been running it daily. Says it's been great up until, I believe it was yesterday morning. It started smoking, losing power, and he said it sounded like it was misfiring. So, all we're doing here is a quick visual inspection. See if we got anything obvious, disconnected, unplugged, whatever. Let's check our fuel. We do have fuel in there. Quick glance, it appears to be alright, but we can check that when we need to, if we need to. The downside here is, if you guys remember, these fittings. Now these are pressure and returns, but if we need to go into the point where we're checking fuel pressure, we're gonna have to stop and get fittings for that. So something to keep in mind. So let's go over here and see what we got. Alrighty. That's always fun. Alright. Key on. Depress clutch. Running pretty smooth so far. We're not huffing and smoking out of the tailpipe yet, so we're kind of battling rain a little bit here today too, so we're gonna let it sit here and warm up a little bit, and then we'll be back. Raining a bit, but let's see what we got going here. Definitely got us some smoke. So, let's see if we can cut the noise down a little bit here. Alright, so we got higher RPM smoke, right? We're actually a little jammed right now because we've got a full load of logs on the back of this thing. We've got a car in front of it that I got no keys for, no way to move. We got that truck that's in the way. We got that windshield I'm not feeling super warm and fuzzy about. So road testing this at this point is not an option. So how else can we narrow this down? How else can we figure out what we want to do? We have high RPM, starts to smoke out. That's suggesting to me an incomplete burn, or it's bleeding pressure off possibly. Maybe excess return. We're gonna play with this a little bit, see if I can, you know what? While we're here, let's get the old temp gun out. 176. Sorry about the glare here. 124, 150, 167. So we got from, if I remember this right, cylinder 1, 2 on the other side, 3, 5, 7. So right now we're looking at 1, 3 seems to be under contributing. 5 is doing a little better. And 7 is about the same. So, set it on a good location. 142, 156, 165, 150. So right now, we're going to let it run a bit more. I'm going to try to load this thing up, but I'm going to need 2 hands for that. Right now we're looking at, in my opinion, at least 1 weak injector on number 3 there. Possibly 1 or 2 more. Now obviously there's a high likelihood the hotter this gets, the worse it gets. So let me see if we can't get this loaded down and we'll come back. So the likely culprit here is an injector, especially with having been previously run out of fuel, but it could be a mechanical issue. I mean, it could be lower compression on that cylinder. So I'm going to get set up. I think we're going to do a quick relative compression test just to see if we need to go further into engine mechanical, and we'll go from there. Alright, so we're just going to be using Veris Edge for a scope on this one. Absolutely nothing wrong with the snap-on scope other than you can't zoom, whatever. Not going into a rant about that right now. I think I will be doing a video on these cases. Keith from New Level Auto and Cuba from Cuba's Automotive has been recommending these for mobile stuff. Got a few yesterday and started organizing everything. So we got our high amp clamp here. These things seem pretty awesome so far. Shut this down. And quickest way on any of these that you have access to it to do a RC test, let me find my wire harness here again, is just disconnect the fuel shutoff solenoid, which that wiring, I don't know if you guys can see it, I got my hand on it, that's right there. So we're going to disconnect that. We're going to hook up around the battery cable under the step here, and we're going to do our RC test to either decide if we're going further in the direction of engine compression building issue and that's why it's not contributing as much, or if we're right back to the fuel injector and the fuel system. We can feel pretty confident because all the other injectors are contributing, that our supply, our fuel, low pressure fuel pump, high fuel pressure fuel pump, high pressure fuel pump, and everything else is contributing, because we're really only looking at 1 to 2 weak cylinders. So we'll get that set up and we will be back again. Alright, so we got amp clamp hooked up around the battery, fuel shut off, disconnected, got our trigger set. I decided to go with putting a second channel in there, and you'll see why shortly, but let's see if I can do this all at once. Key on. Alright. Now keep in mind, everything with the snap-on, focus, only zooms out. So zoom out. Right here we have our initial inrush current. Starter works the hardest when it first starts moving. Okay, so we're going to attempt to drag this bar here, because that's going to control where we zoom in at. That's our focal point for the zoom. Let's start with 64. Focus. Let's bring it into 32. And this is noisy and all, but we'll deal with it. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this channel as our horizontal cursor, because snap-on only gives you verticals. So, just trying to carefully adjust this where I want it. Come on. Careful. Pretty close. Alright. Next, what we want to do here is just choose any cylinder at this point. Let's do 1. What a pain. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we do have slight variations within there. I mean, but you're talking on focus. Everything is over our 500 millivolt or 500 amp line. Alright? So I mean, we're 550, a little closer to 575. No major humps to the point where we would have that little of a contribution from a cylinder, or that much of a almost a completely dead misfire at this point. So whereas there are variations within here, I mean, this thing's got 203,000 miles on it. It was not maintained before this guy bought it. This relative compression test here steers me away from an engine breathing fault, or lack of breathing. So, right now we're looking at number 3 injectors weak. I believe it was number 5 or 7. I'll have to look back, but one of the other two was also contributing less. Gets worse the hotter it gets. It's going to require, to go further, it's going to require valve cover removal, getting in there, checking the rocker arm shim, or rocker arm adjustment for the fuel injectors to make sure, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place right now. We need to check the rocker arms to make sure that the clearance is set properly, that there's not too much lash that's preventing that from being able to fully actuate. Cam lobe maybe being bad. That's all under valve cover stuff. It's not something I'm going to be doing today here. I'm not fully equipped. I don't have my feeler gauges with me or anything like that. That's generally not what I do. So we're going to give him the findings so far, see what direction he wants to go, and then plan accordingly for that. Alright, so we're here. We're learning, and I'm waiting for this guy to get back to me before I leave, so let's do a little further education. So if you guys remember from the past video, we went through the basic governor operation and how it has 2 control arms that pull the rack actuation mechanism for each bank of the engine. From there, that rack then moves this little lever for each fuel injector. So each one of these fuel injectors is actually a self-contained high pressure pump, as well as the injection mechanism, and it's got its own control setup. So we've got spring load, we've got 2 O-rings, we've got an inlet and an outlet on the fuel. All that. We got this mechanism here, which if we scroll down, let's see if we can zoom in a bit for you guys. Oop. Bring it over, bring it over, bring it over. Really? There we go. So the barrel is actually rotated with that arm. And you'll see here we have no injection. Looking at this, it's blocked off. We've got an idling load, the effective stroke, then we got half load and full load, where as we rotate this barrel with that rack actuation mechanism, we're going to get increased effective stroke, more fuel, because we're bringing more air into the engine. So, what does that mean for the customer, for this diag, for everything? We've narrowed it down to one cylinder specifically, but 1 to 2 other possibilities that seem weaker. And this is going to be a case where valve covers are going to have to come off. First thing checked is the overall adjustment for these racks, to make sure each one is fully moving free, nothing's binding up. If that's the case, then you're going into individual injectors and you're going to be pulling them. Now, once you're pulling them, for the amount of miles on this engine and the fact that for all intents and purposes, based off of the service information he has, the records, they're the original injectors. One, closest Detroit diesel dealer to us, I want to say, is about 45 to 50 miles out. Two, this is an old engine. I'm sure you can still get injectors for him and all. But if you're going through all this effort to get in there, are you just going to do one injector, or are you going to do all 8? They've all been done at the same time. You're ready to go. You know, same with pulling the injector out. You can get them rebuilt. I know some people who do it. Are you just going to rebuild one, or are you going to rebuild all 8? I mean, we're at the furthest point I can test with the equipment I have, and without completely disabling this truck and getting into a repair that I'm not going to handle on the side of the road. I mean, this is going to be to somebody who has experience with these, wants to get into the mechanical side. I've got a couple shops I can point them towards that'll take care of them. So that's that. I mean, that's educational wise. We can see if there's anything else exciting on this fuel system that you guys may know about, but I don't believe so. So yeah, there we are. So this is the internal plunger. Top of stroke, fuel's being let in, starts to push down due to the rocker arm pushing on the plunger. So all this fuel's trapped in here, in this little cutaway, and then goes here, end of injection stroke. So it's now forcing it out through this little port, which is feeding down to the injector tip, spring-loaded injection nozzle. Boom, 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 bottom of stroke. At that point, rocker arm starts bringing up, spring starts bringing the plunger back up, and we're good to go. So, yeah. I mean, there's your old school injector pop tester. It's just, I mean, there's a lot that goes into this, especially with diesel injectors. It's just easier and better for everybody involved to send it to a specialist to check out those injectors at that point. It's not cost effective for me to try to rig something like this up and bring it around with me. Alright, now that I'm sufficiently soaked, every job, guys, every single job you can learn something from. Doesn't matter what it is. If you take away one new piece of information, it's worth it. Continue learning, take the challenges of every job, and use them to better yourself, to become better at your craft, your trade, and just keep moving forward. I mean, one of the cool things here is even this 1980s 5.2 or 8.2 liter naturally aspirated, mechanically injected diesel. There's modern techniques that make your job so much easier. I mean, we did relative compression test, which took a lot of effort right off the board. There's variables to that. There's variables to everything. But that's one. Training is what's going to save you no matter what you're working on. If you're working on this old stuff all day, every day, going to training can still help you. You're working on the brand new stuff, absolutely training's going to help you. There's techniques, methods, tooling out there that will help you no matter what you're working on. No matter what. This one here, relative compression test. Getting a cylinder sync, if we wanted to figure out exactly which cylinder was acting up, would have been a little more difficult. because no injection lines to get to. It's under the valve cover. It's not electronic. It is what it is. I mean, there's ways to get around that. But say we did find a low one. Old school way, we could then go and yank that valve cover, pull an injector, hope we don't screw up the O-rings if that's not it. I mean, O-rings are going to need to be replaced anyway, valve cover gasket, going to have to readjust the rocker arms. I mean, it's a mess. Or, you know, something you learn in training, pressure waveform acquisition, Brandon Steckler's class. Taking a pulse sensor, a WPS 500 any type of pressure transducer really, with the right capabilities, stick it in an intake manifold, stick it in the exhaust manifold. Between a relative compression test and an intake and exhaust pulse waveform, you can narrow down incredibly detailed analysis. Intake valve sticking open, late valve timing, exhaust valve bouncing on its seat, leak by, whatever, and save yourself in, 5, 10, 15 minutes of testing, which you'll get faster and faster with the more you do it. You can save yourself hours upon hours of unnecessary teardown, aggravation, consumables that now need to be, billed out to the customer. And say you went the wrong direction. Well, now you're up a creek, so to say. So, get training. Continue to learn, be it, quick tidbits on YouTube to just keep up on the day-to-day and stuff you may not see all the time. Go to your local training classes, your larger training events like Super Saturday that we just had, about 2 weeks ago. Go to it. Enjoy it. You get a lot from them. I mean, yes, you get these spiral-bound books, like this is Brandon's class, and they're great. You can take them home with you. You can learn. You can refer back to them. Keep learning from what you originally had in the class. But you also learn via the community you build, the network, the people you interact with in classes, in between classes, while you're eating, whatever it may be. The stories you tell, the friendships you build, it all goes to building a larger, stronger community. And so when you have something you may not have all the info on, you're beating your head against the wall, you're wondering if there's an easier way, you reach out to that network and you use them, and that you help them, they help you, everybody wins, you continue your education. It's in my opinion, it's ancillary benefit to training. And it's what makes all of us better, drives all of us to continue to succeed. Plus, it's just fun. Who doesn't like meeting new people and, building new friendships? Speaking of which, today's Diag is brought to you by the Detroit Diesel Power Team. Chad, the practical mechanic, and his girlfriend Val, Val and Milk Channel, actually got this for me and brought it down to Super Saturday when they came. So once again, not only do you build friendships, find people who know more than you that drive you to learn more, you get awesome free stuff sometimes. So, seek out training, guys. Build your networks. Work with each other, not against each other. Yes, we're all, independents, dealerships. My shop's down the street from his shop. There's enough work for everybody. There really is. I mean, there's an overabundance of work. Do a good job. Work with each other. And we bring the whole industry up. I mean, we bring it to a higher level. We get rid of some of the stuff at the bottom that's just not the way it should be done, and we all win in the long run. And we have a better overall appearance to the customer because we're more professional, we're better educated, and they're really starting to see the level of what we need to know on a daily basis. So that's my excessively long video. That's my rant for today, and I will catch you guys later. Like I said, I will most likely do a video on those Apache cases, and is what it is. Thank you. Thrilled you guys are at least somewhat enjoying these videos. So, like, subscribe, comment, pass it on if it's useful to somebody. Let me know if there's something different you want to see. I'm working on the outline for a video right now, or probably 2 videos, of how to effectively and quickly analyze service information for a system you've never worked on before. Basically taking all those blocks of text, the diagrams, everything, and break it down into the bare minimum, exactly what you need to know to formulate a test plan and get it done. So look for that upcoming in the next week or so, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hopefully you're drier than I am. Have a good one.